Hey guys. It's your boy the Pokédex man. Alex replaced the last guy because he plugged his channel and was just bad. Now he works for Simple Flips. Quite ironic. Anyway, I was asked to do an intro because Alex couldn't animate this time. So I decided to buy my own copy of Starlink and try out the new stuff for a bit. Let's open up the game, shall we? Alright guys. I am doing a let's play for the intro. This is my first reaction, so let's fly onto the Crimson Moon. I assume there will be cool stuff there. Oh boy, here we go. What? What is this? Where's all the cool stuff? This is just desert. I wasted my money. Screw this, I'm going home. Here you go, Alex.
Alright, honestly, despite what the intro says, this update/DLC is a much needed rework and addition that I didn't know we needed. This makes Starlink an even better game, and it passes Sonic Generations by a lot for me. I would like to say that this review will make no sense unless I give context. I recommend that you watch my other review. Honestly, I do. It will give more context than I could here. Seriously, it will make absolutely no sense if you don't watch the prior review. I will not go over previous ground unless it is absolutely necessary to save time and not to be redundant. Just pause this video, and the previous review will be up in the description, in the cards, and most likely in the recommended section of this video. So go watch that. Now, with my begging out of the way, I want to briefly shout out 2 comments. One from Stardust and one from Kyle here. They're both really constructive, and even though one can't be seen for some reason, listen to it, I tried so hard to get it to work, but I couldn't. Thank you guys. I also want to point out that this review may seem sporadic at first, but let me assure you that I have a structure. And now I will give you timestamps in order for my segments on the screen. I will have transition slides, so you'll see those. The clickable timestamps will be in the comments, and then the ones that are, you can just see will be on screen. First, the difficulty, then the new activities on the Crimson Moon, new items, shops, and voice lines, and finally, the new stories. This is even more stuff to talk about than my initial reviews. Now, let's go.
I'll have 2 number 9s, a number 9 large.
First off, I neglected to mention fully that there is a toy-to-life element to Starlink. However, they seem to have moved to digital only, because in order to get the Star Fox story in the new update, you need to spend $12 on digital pilots. No new ships, just pilots. There are more pilots and weapons as well, but they're also digital only to my knowledge. I could be totally wrong, but I quickly searched Amazon when the update came out and didn't see anything. Speaking of the new pilots, they totally caught me off guard, because the Outlaw, Prospector, Expedition stuff were totally free. Like, you could go do races, you could do the Expedition Outlaw stories, which we'll get to that later, and Prospector stories. But I honestly think these new pilots are worth the money. Not necessarily because they're unique and totally amazing, but because the story that goes along with them is awesome. More on that later. The new pilots, Falco, Peppy, and Slippy. They each have new pilot abilities. Peppy has a shield that seems to never run out and block everything. I don't really use it much, even if I should. Slippy's pilot ability is an EMP blast, and it's fairly useful for taking on some of the new enemies. Also more on that later. And Falco. Ooh, Falco. Falco uses the Smart Bomb. The Smart Bomb is exactly how it was in Star Fox 64, and I love it. He is the pilot out of the new ones that I've used the most, and I do still use Mason and Eli on occasion, but I still use Fox the most overall. Of course, it'd be amiss if I didn't talk about the new stuff they added to the gameplay. There's a new difficulty rating on enemy types. The new enemy types are for the Cyclops. They are called Flawless Cyclops and Flawless Shielded Cyclopses. They are downright terrifying. They hit hard and can be only damaged from the front, and in their little glowy center, right in their line of fire. They killed me more times than I wish to admit. I do like them because they're hard and give me a challenge, but I also hate them for that reason. The new difficulty rating is the Star rating. This boosts defense and attack stats for all of the enemies. Primes, for example, can now two-shot you with their legs and call more reinforcements than ever. Their lasers do so much damage so rapidly as well. Their weak spots also take more damage in order to destroy them. The lasers in the cores of the Dreadnoughts also do a lot more damage with the Star rank. The common enemies get a boost too. They are a lot harder to kill, and they do a lot more damage, but I still kill them easily when compared to the competition. All this combines into a concoction of shame because at first I kept losing both my ships at once, and almost every time I fought a Dreadnought or Extractor. I've gotten better at the game and mastered all my weapons and ships as Fox, so I'm not losing completely as much. I still do die a lot though, and I've learned to run away at times, when I'm being swarmed. One thing I hate about the new difficulty is the fact that I have to babysit the Legion all the time. I really wanted to move on to the Crimson Moon stuff, but the Legion would not stop throwing dreadnoughts at me, thus I have more primes and extractors. It got really tedious, especially since I learned that if you don't take out every extractor from the start, you wind up spawning more primes without a dreadnought. So I had to take a 5-ish hour break from doing the new, exciting stuff to babysit the Legion and do the old style of gameplay, which got really tedious after a while, mainly because I was being impatient. So heed my warning. If, like me at the beginning of my run of the DLC, you want 100% alliance at all times, kill dreadnoughts as soon as they spawn. Unless you are in mid-race or in mid-fight in the arena, kill all primes as fast as possible and kill the extractors right after you do. You can check on the minimap when an extractor will spawn, so get ready to take those out. Get as close to the center of the galaxy as you can. Do all this back to back, and you will not go through the pain that I had to of killing 15 or so extractors and 3 primes when I could have been doing the new stuff. However, I learned that it isn't worth doing later on, because, I had enough armories, at least 2 on every planet, so that the Legion never got over 30%, even with a Dreadnought and 2 primes. Plus, with 1 in the galaxy, there can't be another anywhere else. So as long as you've got 2 or 3 armories on a single planet, I think you'll be fine.
How did I get here?
Now with that anger out of the way, the new Crimson Moon stuff is amazing. The racing is fun, engaging, and full of guns. There's a slick drifting technique that requires you to stop boosting and lightly apply the brace, just pressing back on the C-stick, to pull off well. There are shortcuts that you must break with your weapons to pass through. There are no items, so it's a cleaner race than Mario Kart, but there are more obstacles. Also, it is the only game that I can use my GameCube controller for, so that's a plus.
Dang it!
You can't kill all the other outlaws, but despite the fact that there's no violent manslaughter, it's so fun. The arena is fun because I love combat, and it puts a twist on the combat because the elements and enemy types are changing. There are outlawed-controlled legion, which are more on that later, outlaw cannons and other types of enemies, all on the star power level. On top of that, you're trapped in a set battlefield with things like ramps that you can use to your advantage. I honestly prefer this over racing. The variety that it adds to the combat is worth it. There's even a final battle that's like a boss fight, and it's just more awesome in general. The new items that came into the game came in the form of paint jobs and new weapons. Paint jobs are given when you do something, like give an outpost a core, defeat a dreadnought, but they can also be bought from the limbs and the leader of the Crimson Moon, Fortune. You can also dismantle parts now, which is definitely a plus. You can dismantle mods to get Electrum, dismantle paint jobs to get Electrum, get money from your dismantled parts. As you accumulate the outlaw currency, you can buy them from Fortune. By the way, as of writing this, I now have 38 billion Electrum. Just thought I'd share, humble brag. After you complete missions for the Crimson Moon, more paint job options will become available. New voice lines are nothing special. Every new character has a target destroyed line, and yes, they just say target destroyed. And then I have multiple voice lines when you link them in, or the ship is at critical damage.
Okay, the plane didn't explode.
This one has a lot of spoilers ahead, so if you don't want to see these spoilers, skip to this timestamp. Alright? Alright. Now, like me as I was writing this, you may be like, dude, you didn't say much about the items and shops. Why? Well, part of it is because I'm trying to be more concise and because there really wasn't much to say. But also because the story element is so big, it is actually longer than the original main campaign. There are 3 new stories that offer so much content, I have almost 60 hours logged, where before I only had about 40. Taking all the time off for racing and fighting in the arena, in about a week and a half I had logged 15 hours. This is just for the DLC. The reason I had 40 hours initially was because I spent a considerable amount of time just messing around after my review. I completed the entire game, messing around, gathering extra footage, babysitting Legion, and learning included about 25 hours. I beat the campaign with no messing around, no extra footage, and not much learning in 15. That's the new DLC in 15. That's crazy. There's more story here than before. I'll also say that with the quantity, they also deliver in quality. I'll start off with the story relating to the prospectors. As Fortune says,
but we have an agreement. They don't interfere with the moon, and we pretend their jails mean something. But 2 outlaw prisoners have broken the contract and escaped. To avoid unnecessary violence, I promised the outlaws would be returned. I hear the notorious ex-bounty hunter Eli Arborwood graces your little clan. Perhaps he'd be inclined to show you the ropes, so you can round up these ruffians.
this is the last one I did, but it was the one that I should have gone with first. Go figure. So with that in mind, after I accepted the mission, I was like, oh, this will be another hour-long adventure that will have me hopping from planet to planet taking weirdos out. This won't take long. Let's just say I was totally wrong. This is where most of the hours that I logged came from. This is like another main campaign that sees you taking out outlaw after outlaw, where you have different tasks for each. The first one that you were just given his coordinates. Fortune just has them for some reason. And here where things get interesting, both for me writing this and because I don't want to have this thing 5,000 pages long, as well as the game. You find wreckage that turns out to be a grappler, which is an outlaw capture device. After that, you capture an outlaw which is voiced by Zach from Wildcrats. I know this because, as I'm writing this, my sister is blaring the show at a really high volume. Now I'm going to briefly go over why I think the grappler is an amazing addition to the story. We learn that the prospectors had bounty hunters and prisons. Eli was actually a bounty hunter way back in the day before he settled down. And the grappler is old tech that is still good by their modern standards. It also explains how the plucking tech from long before this update came out might have come to be. This is on a bigger scale and needs much more precise and longer time to aim because you are effectively plucking a cockpit from a moving ship in space that is actively shooting at you. This, among many other changes that I'll go into later, is one of the many amazing additions. Now I'm going to quickly go over the rest of the story in one paragraph. Here we go. There are 3 other outlaws that you must catch to finish this. The first one requires you to complete some racing requirements. This is the easiest for me since I'm fairly decent at the races, and it didn't require much in the first place. The second was to make some noise by defeating outlaws. Not here much to explain aside from the fact it was the hardest, due to the fact they aren't as common as Legion, but I did find a workaround by just playing the champion battle in the arena several times, which I actually recommend doing that instead of running around trying to search for the specific requirements. Finally, we confront Lord Overgrowth, which I don't feel as bad about spoiling this as compared to the other things because it was super obvious from cutscene 1. Overgrowth is Eli's brother who thinks that releasing a virus on Atlas will bring everyone together into a giant version of a dreadnought. Needless to say, we win. And with his Thanos plan out of the way, I want to talk about this fight because it killed me so many freaking times. This is a dreadnought fight verbatim, but everything has been put on steroids, the mushrooms in Super Mario Bros., and whatever workout routine Ryu from Street Fighter went through. They were also given King K. Rool's super armor, so that every piece of this ship took at least 100 hits from my flamethrower and frost barrage each. But after you defeat it, you capture Eli's brother, Thicket, and bring him to the void. Honestly, this is the weakest story. There isn't enough here, story-wise, that adds anything. Aside from the grappler, this information added was not really all that important. I also add that if you quit the game while doing those quests for the Outlaws, it resets. That Legion one actually kept me from getting to the end like that. Realism, yeah, because you need to get their attention and you need to make enough noise at a certain time span, you know. But still, it was still fun, if annoying. I'd recommend playing this one first, however, not only because it would make much more sense with the other stories, but because you can just get it out of the way. 5 out of 10. Up next is the shortest and most interesting story. 1 paragraph story, actually. Fortune sends some idiots to check out what scientists need to. After a puzzle, it wound up showing the beginnings of Atlas. When the Wardens first came, they planted the spires so that they had control over Atlas. They find a few more, and you find a few more sparks, and then you see the anvil, which is some great contraption that the Wardens had built. And you are given a choice on what to do that actually affects story, which is pretty cool. If you choose not to destroy the anvil like I did, you see an alternate Equinox come and take it. That was so freaking unexpected. It was so cool. Like, I have some theories, but hint hint, I have a few videos planned to get some of my theories about many different games out of the way, so stay tuned to Who knows what's going to be in those videos. If you choose to destroy it, someone gets sad. Carl gets sad. That's it. This is an okay story, but it didn't need to be huge. It just gave us just enough information for maybe a sequel. But I still think the next story is better. The puzzles are good too. Nice change of pace. 7 out of 10. Oh boy, this one. This one was worth the $12 I had to shell out to buy it. It was also very simple, but not one paragraph worthy. So the story starts out with Fortune, finally see the theme here, giving the Star Fox crew a package, an unknown package. They bring it back to the Equinox and it's a... Corneria cake! Holy cow! I can't believe my eyes! I'm in heaven! This dessert is... The Corneria cake includes a camera that Starwolf left. Check out this broadcast that was live at the time.
Oh my God!
Pigma!
Enjoying our Corneria cake, Peppy?
I suppose you're dying to know how it got there.
Leon.
Transcendental teleportation device.
It's trans-dimensional. You thought I wasn't as smart as Uncle Andros. Well, guess what?
You're not.
Hey, I made this myself. Shut it, both of you! You made a fool of our boss. And
I love Andrew's voice. Uncle Andros!
Friends of Wolf. And now they've got some kind of portal device. That ain't good in paws like theirs.
Sounds like you got a few bad guys to catch.
Hold up. It's our fight too.
What'd you have in mind?
All portals come with a unique energy signature. If these guys use that device again, we can track them down before they even know it.
Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, that probably wasn't all that accurate, but you get the idea. First, you fight Pigma as Peppy, and you must block the reactor from blowing up after Pigma pretends to be a prisoner that is trapped. Nothing much here, just blown to pieces, and that's it. Like, kinda anticlimactic. Then you fight Andrews Lippy on Tundra. Again, just kinda blow him to shreds. Except this time he's in an outlaw tank and actually has hostages. And finally, things get good. You fight Leon as Falco at a rendezvous. This time, he has a tough shield that I found is the fastest to use Falco's smart bomb, which it sometimes needs 2, sometimes needs 1, I don't know, it was kind of inconsistent. New favorite pilot ability, by the way. You then use the grappler to bring him to the void, but he breaks out, and a final battle occurs. The best boss in Starlink, at least as of this update. The Equinox is attacked by a huge freaking ship headed by Wolf himself. To beat it, you throw mines at tractor beams, destroy the cannons, and take out the wing modules, or whatever the heck they're called. But as you do this, member of the Starwolf and other space outlaws come and attack you. With the Starwolf crew, they all have the shield that Leon had. You're given lots of Falco and Fox tokens, though. The tokens are for the Star Fox characters to reveal your pilot ability and ability instantly when collected. After that, Wolf himself comes out to play, and after you destroy him, they all go spinning away, just like last time.
What do we do now, Wolf? Hey! Wolf!
Why do I like this so much? Well, first of all, Star Fox. But secondly, this story was the perfect length with a unique boss fight and a satisfying ending at the end. Star Fox talked about leaving super soon and how much they would miss Atlas. I legitimately thought that their exchange would then trigger another cutscene where they would leave canonically. And the only characters that would have been canon in the game after this would be Mason, Eli, and the rest of the Star Fox crew. But no. They're just saying that they have just a little bit left to do. Yeah, it was a little bit simple, but I had the most fun playing this one, even if it was $12. 10 out of 10, at least out of these 3. Almost as good as the original story. Overall thoughts and conclusion. Overall thoughts? Well, it was probably the best content from a game I've seen in a long time. And listen here, I don't throw this sentence around lightly. I don't think I've ever said this unironically or seriously. This is almost as good as Pokemon White. Yes, I just said that. This DLC for Starlink Battle for Atlas is almost as good as my favorite game of all time. I think that this is the highest praise I could give a game, especially when there are no nostalgia goggles for this at all. I agree that Pokemon White is somewhat nostalgia, Not like all nostalgia, but I see that as an aspect in why I like the game so much. This game has no nostalgia. I literally bought it like 3 or 4 months ago. So yeah, I cannot explain how much this surprised me. And I hope that you can see that too. 9.5 out of 10. Amazing job, guys. I really hope for a sequel.